Hello, this is your art teacher, Mr. Aguilar, and today we're going to be going over two-point perspective. So we're going to be creating a two-point perspective of cubes, center, and then receding back to the left and receding back to the right. Um, so you're going to need a horizon line and two vanishing points, and that needs to be in the center of the paper. So in this one, we have our three establishing lights for our cubes that are in the front, and we're going to be drawing guidelines to the top and bottom of each line to each vanishing point. So one thing to keep in mind is all our lines going back into linear perspective have to go back to a vanishing point. All of our lines that are going to be vertical need to be straight up and down. So you have to make sure that your lines are not angling off at all. They want to be straight up and down. Now, once we have all our guidelines drawn in, we need to establish our left and right hand side. So I made a digital ruler so you guys can see it. I can't use a ruler when I'm working digitally, so I just created a graphic for you guys. And then what we're going to do is we're going to draw our three straight lines. So you want to do this at the same time with the ruler to make sure that all your lines are in the same spot, and that creates that uniformity. And then we're going to do it right over here on the right hand side. Uh, I've color coded this, so all the colored lines are guidelines, and all guidelines are supposed to be drawn extremely light. All of our dark lines are going to be our black lines, and you want to be those to be a little bit thicker and darker. So when you're doing your guidelines, make sure you're using like a 2H or 4H pencil, and then like an HB or 2B pencil for your dark lines. Once you have these in, we want to complete our shape. So we're going to complete our shape for the cube at the top, the cube in the middle, and the cube below. Now, what you're going to see is the cube on the horizon line, we cannot see the top or bottom, so that one's technically done. On the other two cubes, we've created new points to the left and to the right, and those are not going to the vanishing points. So we're going to take our left vanishing point and go to the right corner, and then we're going to take our right vanishing point and go to the left corner. And where we have those intersection, that's going to give us the bottom of the top cube and the top of the bottom cube. And then what we want to do is just darken in those lines so we can complete that shape, and that gives us our cube. Again, really stressing the fact that we're going to be adding a lot of vanishing, a lot of guidelines. So you want to make sure that those are extremely light because it can get confusing. So we're going to start by putting cubes on the right-hand side going back into space. So I'm going to bring out that ruler. I'm going to make them close enough to where they're going to overlap. So you can see that depth with overlapping. And on this side, I'm going to start it off a little bit differently. So I'm going to establish my shape with the top one and then use the ruler to line it up and draw the lines for the middle cube and the bottom cube. And what we're really doing is we're creating the right side of that cube. And once we have our lines drawn in, so I'm going to go to the middle and the bottom and then go to the other side. And then once we have those drawn in, what we want to do is complete that shape. And I'm indicating right now that we are drawing the right side of the cube or the right facing side. So I'm going to use these little circles to show exactly what I'm talking about. And then I decided to add a colored graphic to make it more apparent. So again, we just created the right side. Now by doing that, we created 3 new points on the top and bottom cube and 2 new points on the middle cube. Those points are going to the vanishing point on the right. So now we got to take those corners or points and have them go to the vanishing point on the left. I've color coded these to try to make it as easy as possible to follow. One thing I would suggest is watching the video and then going back and pausing as you need to complete this. So we are indicating the bottom of that top cube and the top of the bottom cube. And then we're just going to connect those lines to have our shape. And by doing that, we created a fourth point. And that fourth point is the back of the cube. And that's going to go straight up and down. So again, really important that you make all your vertical lines perfectly vertical. And we just created that fourth point on the bottom cube. So I try to speed this up to the point where you can still follow without it being too long. But again, I would suggest pausing it. So these lines are going to go straight up. Now notice you only draw the line until it hits that cube because that front cube's overlapping. Same thing with the bottom cube. Now, one thing that I forgot to do is I forgot to put the guidelines for the middle one that's sitting on the horizon line. If you want to save yourself some trouble, you can line up those two corners on the horizon one to the vanishing point, but reality is you just need to draw the lines until they hit because we know the back side of the cube is going to be covered by that front cube. So there's the guidelines going all the way back, but the reality of the situation is all I really need to do is draw those lines darkly until they hit that cube, just like I'm indicating right now. Again, I can't do this on the computer. I have to draw all my guidelines, but if I'm using a ruler, I am just going to draw the line until it hits the object that I need. So now we're going to take that digital ruler that I made and we're going to move it over to the left-hand side. And I'm going to line that up. I'm going to put my guideline there and I'm going to draw 3 lines going down. And as you can see, it can get a little bit confusing with all the guidelines. So I'm going to eliminate those other guides that are going to the right. And then we're going to bring that ruler up. And what we're doing is we're creating the left facing side of those cubes to the left, just like we did on the right hand side. One thing you'll notice is I have to adjust my points. It's way easier to do this by hand with a ruler. So with the digitally, I have to adjust a lot of these points. And once I have my lines in, I want to complete my shape. And again, I'm creating 3 new corners or 3 new points that need to go to a vanishing. And on the middle one, I'm creating 2. So all those points are going to the left. So now I got to add a guideline going to the right. And we are just completed the left-hand face of those cubes. So now it's time to put in our guidelines. And we're going from those corners to the vanishing point on the right. Again, it's really important to realize all of your lines going back to linear perspective have to go to a vanishing point. This confuses people sometimes, so this is why we do assignments like this. It's easy, and what we did is we just completed the bottom and the top parts of the cubes as indicated by that yellow, and we're going to complete our shapes. And just like the on the other side, when we complete that shape, we create that 4th point in the back, and we're going to have that line go straight up, and then we'll have the other line go straight down. So it's important to know that these cubes are in space behind the other cubes. So you don't want the lines going through. You want them going until they hit that cube in the front because we want to show depth with overlapping as well as depth with linear perspective. So now all our cubes are complete. And then our next phase is to add a light source and then to add our values according to that light source. So the light source I'm putting up is the upper right, which means the bottom of the top cubes, which are opposite of the light source, are going to be the darkest. And then the left facing side of the cubes are away from the light source. So those are also going to be dark. And then the bottom part of the top, or the top part of the bottom cubes are directly underneath the light. So those are going to be the lightest. And then the right facing sides of the cubes are getting the ambient light from the light source. So those are going to be our second lightest value. So this is one aspect of doing this on the computer is way faster than shading by hand. And now we're going to be putting in those other sides. We want to keep our values consistent because we have a single light source. The one thing we're not really doing is we're not going to be putting in shadows. Shadows would be like the last thing you do to really show a 3D environment. That's something you do in a drafting class, that you do stuff like this all year long. And once you understood how to use perspective, then you look at how do I cast shadows with a light source. So this is our assignment. Until next time, this is Mr. Aguilar, and I hope you enjoyed this and got something out of learning how to do 2-point perspective.